It's less a gas station than Buc-ee's. It's less a gas station and more a theme park for people who think beef jerky is a food group. You don't stop at Buc-ee's. You disembark. The parking lot is larger than most airports, with rows of pumps all full, like it's Black Friday for unleaded. It's where you'll find lifted trucks, RVs the size of starter homes, and at least one guy filling up a 5-gallon gas can who absolutely should not be operating machinery. Upon stepping inside, it appears as though Walmart had a baby with Bass Pro Shop and then raised it in a Texas roadhouse. And Buc-ee's doesn't sell snacks. They sell impulse control issues. You walk in for water and leave with a brisket sandwich, 2 pounds of fudge, and a bag of beaver nuggets, which are basically diabetes in nugget form. I don't know what's in beaver nuggets, but I'm positive it's illegal in 7 states. They taste like caramel, childhood, and a root canal waiting to happen. They're what you eat when you've completely given up on life, but still want to enjoy it. And then there's the bathrooms. These aren't just bathrooms. They're cleaner than most hospitals and twice as private.
This is the
You
best
walk
part.
in expecting gas station horror, a broken lock and a crackhead washing their socks in the sink, and instead, you're in a day spa for your ass. The stalls have floor-to-ceiling doors. You could file your taxes in there. You could take a Zoom meeting. Hell, you could die in one of those stalls and the janitor would bless your body before they mopped around it. It's the first bathroom in history where you can shit yourself and still feel respected.
I'm gonna pause it there because everyone needs to go. The thing is, I'm gonna share the video on Twitter, and it's not the original content creators thing, but at least I won't feel guilty for having played the entirety of it. It gets funnier and funnier towards the end. And if you've never seen a Buc-ee's, people, you don't know what she's talking about. But I've been to a Buc-ee's, and they're wild. Okay, don't have her name says, oh my God, I thought the interview started and this was Enrique's mother. Enrique's 41 years old, so that would have been a very time-traveling thing to do. Good afternoon, everybody. Off schedule in terms of timing, and check out The Unusual Suspects at 6 o'clock tonight because I'm on it. But look, the theme of the week, in fact, the theme is going to be up until Inauguration Day, or I should say immediately thereafter. Pardons for the Jan 6ers. Period, full stop, all of them. This is Enrique Tarrio's mother. Now, I feel like I know Enrique Tarrio already because of the duration for which I've been covering his story as relates to January 6th, the trial, the conviction for seditious conspiracy when he didn't step foot on the Capitol on that day and was sentenced to 22 years in jail. A 41-year-old, 40 or 41, I got to ask the internet or Grok doesn't seem to know Enrique's exact age, but it's raise awareness time right now, and it's make a noise loud enough that Team Trump doesn't just hear it, but understands that there's been an injustice committed that needs to be righted, and there is, unfortunately, or I should say, fortunately, one way to do that, and that is with the power of the pardon that Joe Biden has been using and abusing, and it's about time for Trump to use it, not abuse it. So I'm going to bring in Zuny Tarrio, who is Enrique's mother. And I warned her in advance. I asked too many questions, but we're gonna keep this not limited, but it's gonna be limited. Although I did ask her if I could, I want to know about Enrique's childhood. I want to know the family. From what Grok tells me and from what the internet says, Cuban immigrants coming to America, and I dare say, in a very meaningful sense, now experiencing, and not just them, others who fled countries of tyranny coming to America and seeing. That what Reagan once said, we are always only one generation away from loss of freedom. Zuny, you're good. Thumbs up. I'm going to bring you in. 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Zuny, I'll ask you how goes the battle, but I have a good idea. How are you doing?
Hi, Viva. How are you? Thank you for having me on. Really appreciate it.
It's not my pleasure. It's just like I'm glad. I didn't even know this was a possibility, and I'm glad it's come to fruition. So I say it jokingly, you're the Biden administration, public enemy number one's mother. I before anything wanted to know, about your, I guess both you and your husband immigrated to America from Cuba.
Yes, we did. We came when we were small children, both of us, and we were raised in the States.
What's that? Do you remember any of that journey, like upping and leaving? Did you leave everything? What were the circumstances, or how what it was like to do that?
Well, I was a small child, but one of my first memories is getting on the plane in Havana and leaving my grandmother behind. I was with my parents at the time, but leaving my grandmother. And I think I remember that because it was so shocking to me at the moment. And I could feel my parents' pressure having to leave their homeland and come to a country that they didn't know the language or anything else. So I think that was pretty traumatizing for me as a child. But once we were here, we knew we were here to stay.
That's very, very cool. Is it like a story where they came with a briefcase and $100 in their pocket, or were the circumstances different?
Probably a lot less than $100 back then.
Sorry.
But yeah, we came with very little, probably a suitcase and probably a couple of dollars if so.
And if I
we
may
had
ask,
family already in the States, so we were fortunate.
okay. And so where did you move to when you came to the States initially?
Well, we stopped to Miami. We came to the Tower of Liberty. We were here for a couple of days, and then we were sent to Southern California, where I was raised, and we stayed there until I think 1980, and then we moved to Miami, where we've lived since.
So I mean, I won't ask when, but what was SoCal like when you lived there and compare? I don't know if you've been back to have a comparison. It was beautiful back then?
It was beautiful. It was very beautiful. I was raised in an Asian small town, and it was very nice back then. And yes, I have been back. I was talking to somebody about that today. I was like, oh my God, it was so different back then. But then everything in the world was different.
Now you say you've been back to SoCal. Is it a stupid question? Are you allowed to go back to Cuba? Have you been back to Cuba, travel, visit family?
Yes. For my parents, although my parents never went back, it was important for me to go back since I came as a very small child. It was important for me to see where I was born and how my parents lived there the last years. So it was a very difficult, but yes, I have gone back twice. And that was it, just to find out, and I've never been back.
Very, very interesting. All right. And now, so you come to America, you're living the American dream. You have, from what the internet says, 3 kids?
I have 2.
Okay.
I have and a daughter.
All right. And now, how is Enrique, am I allowed asking, is he 40 or 41?
He's going to be 41 next month.
All right. And I've got to ask, because everybody, I love getting to know how people become the adults that they are. If I may ask, Enrique, as a kid, what was he like, and was he a defiant child? I mean, what was he like as a human?
Oh, actually, he was a great child. He was the first child of the family. He was the first grandson, the first nephew. So we all loved him with passion, and he has a great heart. He really does. Since he was a child, he's a people person. He'll walk in and light up a room, even if as a child, he was great. He didn't like history, by the way.
He did not like history.
He did not. He didn't like history until he was in high school, I think. So that's kind of funny because, all this is history.
Well, I mean, the crazy thing is no kid, I would say very few kids can appreciate history because you have to have lived long enough to appreciate the importance of history. And, I go back now and rewatch or listen to how the World War I started because it becomes much more interesting when you appear to be on the brink of World War III. Okay, then I was going to ask another question about. Okay, we'll fast forward a little bit. I have to ask about May I ask when you became aware that he was involved with this big bad boogeyman called the Proud Boys? Because I'll preface this. I follow the Proud Boys. They were declared, and I say this with thorough judgment because it's insane that the organization was designated a terrorist organization in Canada, and I'm like, what did they ever do? And I'm Googling, I'm looking. Oh, brawls every now and again. Like I look up the criminal activity of the Proud Boys. I never understood it. I always thought it was just a pretext in Canada to facilitate the persecution in America because Justin Trudeau, by designating them that group, on the one hand, you facilitate seizure of assets, but also you sort of lay the groundwork for the Biden administration as relates to Jan 6, treating them like a much scarier boogeyman than they were. Do you know when he got involved with that?
I'm going to tell you honestly, I just found out that about the Canada situation last night, believe it or not. So, I'm just a mom like any other. I found out, I knew he was a Proud Boy. I didn't know he was the chairman of the Proud Boys for a very long time. So it did come to a surprise for me, but he's always done fairly good decisions, and he has a good heart. So I felt that whatever he was doing in the Proud Boys, and I still do, was for a good cause and was for the people. He never really does things for himself. He always does them for humanity and for people. So it didn't come to a big surprise that he was the chairman at the Proud Boys at the time. Again, I didn't find out till late in the ball game who he really was. Yeah.
And I'll say it because I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's a flipping joke that they were designated a terrorist group up in Canada, where I think they've had zero activity, but I think this was all sort of part of a play, a dance together between Trudeau and Biden to facilitate this, to create the image. I also always found it fascinating, and I'm saying that as sarcastically, that what they call a white nationalist group has a Cuban son of immigrants as a lead member, and they never. Thus far, I've been looking. I don't see that they've done anything bad. So he's so let's go like right up to Jan 6. I won't ask your political orientation, but are you a religious family?
Yeah, we're a religious family, and my political orientation is no secret. Obviously, I stand by my son on what he believes, what he politically believes, and in all his beliefs. And up to January 6th, I still believe in him.
Were you aware? I mean, I don't even know where to start. The events of January 6th, Enrique's involvement, or what I would say lack of involvement, like how does it happen? How do you become familiar with what's going down with him and the severity of the situation?
I think the lack of involvement is a perfect phrase. I don't think there's really much to say about Enrique related to January 6th, believe it or not. I mean, we have to do our due diligence and not only see the videos or not even believe mainstream media. We need to know for ourselves what a person has done in the past, in their hometown, for their community, as an American citizen. So what happened on January 6th really, not only because he wasn't there, that's not to say that Enrique wasn't involved because he wasn't there is not all. It's to say that he wasn't involved because he didn't ask anyone to do that. He didn't conspire to do that, regardless of what mainstream media shows or says. The mainstream media and the government, the Biden administration, have told us a lot of things that now we know are not true. So I don't think his involvement was so minimal there, and there was proof of that even before January 6th, where he asked in a video for everyone to remain calm. He was supposed to be in Washington, D.C. for a speech he was going to give. So his involvement on January 6th, regardless, was minimum. And I don't think anybody right now in any group has the power to organize that many thousands of people to go to the January 6th, to the Capitol grounds that day. So I think that was just a spur of the moment situation. I don't think anybody really planned to be there that day, and certainly not Tarrio.
I'll humorously disagree, only to say Ray Epps, I think, planned.
Oh yeah, well,
Ray Epps. There were some feds. I think
on that. Yeah, and there was a lot of people on the ground that were undercover and put there for the sole purpose of to create that disturbance. He didn't that situation.
I mean, I presume you followed the trial very closely.
I was there every single day.
Okay, and so people have to understand this. It's not just that he was there, but unarmed. It's not that he was armed and found elsewhere. He wasn't there, and he was tried and convicted for seditious conspiracy, which I don't know how many people have ever been charged with, let alone convicted of, in the history of America. And I just looked it up there. Trudeau designated the Proud Boys a terrorist group on February 3rd, 2021. So barely a month after. Not even a month after Jan 6. And I have no doubt that was to paint a public perception that the organization was up to terroristic activities. He gets charged for seditious conspiracy. Can you flesh out the evidence, or what I would probably refer to as the dearth of evidence, of his involvement in any conspiracy, let alone seditious, whatever that means?
Exactly. Whatever that means is perfect, because I don't think that those 12 jurors before, during, or after the trial even knows what seditious conspiracy is. I really don't believe that if you asked one of them, they could tell you what seditious conspiracy is. We know now the high percentage and that we had that we had to have a conviction in DC. We know it more now more than ever after these elections. We know how many people are Democrats, and those 12 people were definitely Democrats. And there had to be one of them that thought, okay, well, how about if Enrique Tarrio would have been there on January 6th? Would things have been different with his group? Enrique Tarrio couldn't control the thousands of people that were there, but he probably would have handled things a little differently. He's a very peaceful man. And, there was only, an X amount of Proud Boys there in comparison to the thousands of people that were there. So what happened is that they showed bits and pieces of evidence in the trial, and those bits and pieces were a lot of those videos that we see on mainstream media, which shows the worst of January 6th. But they don't show when police officers were letting people into the building, where there was instigation within the crowd. Nothing of that is shown properly. So people have this image of January 6th that is an incorrect image.
But I've got to highlight I got to highlight the absurdity. Just so I'm not leading the witness. I agree with Zuny and think this is a travesty of justice. They're showing videos of Jan 6 when Enrique's not there. They then go and charge him with seditious conspiracy. He gets a jury trial in DC. And just for the crowd, for everybody who understands what seditious conspiracy is, according to the law, it's, listen to this, 2 or more persons in any state or territory or jurisdiction of the states who conspire to overthrow, put down, or to destroy by force the government of the United States, or to levy war against it, to oppose by force the authority thereof. And when I've done videos on this in the past, I say, what the hell does that mean? To oppose by force the authority thereof. It seems like every resisting arrest is seditious conspiracy if there's more than 2 people involved. All of that to say, Enrique's not there. So during this trial, and you try to get 12 jury members from 95% Hillary Clinton loving DC to understand that legal definition, which is, I say, void for constitutionally void for vagueness. What was the evidence that Enrique Tarrio partook in seditious conspiracy to overthrow the government when he was not even there?
There was no evidence. All the evidence showed freedom of speech, texts back and forth, in which Enrique Tarrio, most of those texts, either he didn't open the text, he didn't reply to the text, he was thrown in the mix because of who he was. And they used the prosecution, which of course was weaponized by the Biden regime, used his face to prove something, to cover up. The way I see it is, what they did was they had not done anything to the Antifa or any of the other riots. Mm-hmm. So they had to cover up what they had done there, which was nothing, with using the Proud Boys and the J6ers for the country to say, oh, okay, the administration, the prosecution, the DOJ, the FBI is doing something to protect our country. By the contrary, they did nothing when the country was being destroyed and people were being threatened and bullied in the streets by Antifa. So what they did was they showed bits and pieces of evidence that made no sense, but it was in DC. They got these 12 jurors, which I don't think they were very, I don't want to say smart, but when you don't even know what you're judging. I mean, when I went into that courtroom and they said seditious conspiracy, I had to look it up and check what it was. Well, I'm not into law. I'm not into politics. So, it was something ridiculous.
When they had to give like a jury form for consideration for deliberations, did they explain out loud to the jury what the charges implied or what seditious conspiracy was?
They didn't explain to them what it was. They were explained what the charges were, mm-hmm. but not exactly the definition of every charge. And again, these were 12 jurors from DC. We asked for venue changes several times. Our guys from our indictment weren't even given a bond so that they can wait for their trial at home with their kids and their children and their parents and their family. They were thrown into the cages and left there. And then they brought 12 of their peers, which is the funnest thing I've ever heard in legal law, of their peers to judge them. When we all knew those 4 jurors were going to be biased. But more than that, who's at fault? At fault is that prosecution, the Biden administration, those judges that went along with all of this, hurting and costing millions of dollars in American dollars for these trials that were outrageously unnecessary.
I don't know if anyone's asked you this. I haven't been able to listen to all the interviews you've done. The jury, young, old, a mix, racially diverse. What did they look like?
We had five, I believe 5 Black Americans. The rest were white. We had and I think that was about it. They brought in a prosecutor that explained the conspiracy theory at the end in her closing statements, which she was a Black woman from New York, I believe. She was brought from New York. I think it was to impress the jury because she was a woman and she was Black. And I felt very bad for her, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But she was used by her team at their will. And I was kind of surprised that she would let that happen. And I was surprised that the Black Americans in that jury didn't see things so differently.
So 12 of them, it seems 50-50, relatively diverse. How long did the trial last?
5 months.
Shut up. I'm sorry. I don't mean to tell you to shut up. That is, I didn't realize that. 5 months.
It took us almost a month just to do jury selection. It took like 3 weeks to do jury selection because we couldn't get a good jury. Obviously, we couldn't get a good jury. And prosecution, well, the judge kept reviving these jurors. I mean, they were asked, can you leave your political opinions? Do you know who the Proud Boys are? And they would say, we can't leave our political opinions. We can't forget what happened on January 6th. We know who Enrique Tarrio is. We know who. And, they kept reviving them. They're telling you they can't put it aside. Why would you put them on the jury pool?
Do you remember, I presume, and I'm fairly certain they did Enrique ask for a change of venue?
Several times, not only Enrique, they all did.
Yeah, no, that's, did Enrique had an attorney, or did he had an attorney?
Yeah, he has 2 attorneys, a group of attorneys.
I'm just trying to think of Norm. I don't think Norm. I forget now. I've dealt with a lot of these cases.
Norm Pattis was part of our an attorney for our indictment, but not for Enrique Tarrio, but Norm Pattis. He's a great attorney, and he was.
Yeah, I've had him on. We talked about it. Can I ask the crass question? How much did he end up spending on attorney fees?
Well, on legal fees alone, $1 million. $500,000. I'm sorry, I correct myself. Plus all the plus, a lot of money. I mean, a lot of these guys their families have gone to bankruptcy. They have nothing to come home to. They only have their families to come home to. If you had a home, you probably asked for a mortgage or had to sell. Even if you were court appointed, it costs us a lot of money to go to court. It costs a lot of money to visit an inmate. It costs a lot of money to have an inmate there. Either that, or they won't eat properly, or they can't use the phone enough. So this has been very costly. It's been costly for all American citizens. It's from our tax dollars that this thing has happened. And in Enrique's particular case, I can't talk about other cases. It's been our family's money that has been put there. Because I could not have my son in a courtroom without knowing that he was very represented in one of the biggest cases in history.
Give me 1 second, Zuny. I have a dog who's irritating me. Get out. Go, get out. Okay. Sorry. So, I mean, I'll ask another crass question. You have to refinance your house or do you have to refinance assets
We did. We had to get rid of a lot of assets in order to make that happen. I mean, honestly, when I sat there and I did the numbers, I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to do this. So we had to do a lot of that. Um, we got some private donations. Thank you, God. We got a lot of public donations. Thank you, God, for everybody. Through all of this, if one thing has been good is that I've seen how good people can be. I've also seen a lot of evil, but we've been very, very lucky, and we're a hardworking family, and we stick together, and we've done that once and twice and again and again.
How long have you and your husband been married for now? It's got to be.
Well, I'm not married to Enrique's father. We've been divorced, but we stay in touch on a daily basis.
Okay. And
we raised him as if we were.
I say not more. That's difficult. I mean, I've been a lawyer and oh, I hope she comes back. Hold on one second. Let me refresh. Did the screen go black for everybody else? Let me refresh here and just, she's on mute. Coming back. There it is. The process is the punishment. We'll get Zuny back in a second because 5 months of a trial. There she's coming back. Okay, bring you back in. Okay. I thought I asked one too many questions, Zuny.
Oh no, it's okay. My signal here is not good. That's why. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So 5 freaking months. You're there for 5 months. You're in DC for 5 months.
Yes, I asked for my job to let me work, like if it was working from home, that I would work from DC. So I would go to court in the morning. At lunch, we would break at the trial. I would work. I would come back to the Airbnb and keep working until like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning and do it all together again. So I was able to keep my job for 5 months, but it was important for me, for my son, to look over to his right and see that I was there every single day for trial.
And I won't need you to flesh out how insane it is that the trial could have ever lasted 5 months. It's like a long word salad of an answer when an answer is a short answer. And if it gets longer, the person doesn't know what they're saying. If a trial takes 5 months to try to prove guilt, it's a load of absolute dog crap. And they played videos of the Capitol where Enrique wasn't. A load of evidence and witness testimony absolutely irrelevant to Enrique. Okay, so 5 months. And how long did they deliberate for?
I believe it was several days. I can't remember that, Viva. But yeah, it lasted 5 months. Again, we had 3 weeks of jury selection. We went into the trial. It was 5 guys in our indictment. So it was really difficult because all 5 guys had different circumstances. They put everybody into the mix because they were Proud Boys. So they stuck everybody into that trial mix, and they did it. When trial started, I didn't even know how that was going to work out, honestly, because everybody had a different story and had a different situation, and played a different part. So it was very difficult, but they did it on purpose. They did it on purpose to make it this big, big deal. Proud Boys, 5 guys. Prosecution didn't do their job. They simply didn't. Just because they were found guilty, they didn't do their job.
No,
they were given
a foregone conviction that they'll be able to,
exactly. They were given that conviction, and it still rings in my ear when in their room, they started to all laugh and applaud their work. And I was like, I wish I could go in there and tell them, listen, you didn't do your job. You were given that conviction by 12 people that, they're politically inclined to the Biden administration.
Meanwhile, by the way, Enrique was locked. He was incarcerated in pretrial detention the entire time, or was he?
Yes, he never got bond.
Holy
None of the 5 guys in our indictment ever got bond, ever. And we had 3 guys from the 5 that has served in the armed forces, and they were never given bond. None of them were given bond. Like they're these big criminals, which they're not. They're not murderers. They're not drug dealers.
And not flight risks, I would add. They were arrested.
A flight risk. I mean, their whole families live in the States. Like I told you at the beginning of this conversation, we came to the States. I came to the States as a child knowing that this was going to be my home forever.
So he's in jail the entire time. 5-month trial. People can. I know what the evidence was. Text messages to prove seditious conspiracy.
Exactly.
They deliberate for however long. They come back and say guilty, unanimous. We
thought at one point that they were probably going to find the other 4 guys guilty of minor things, and that they would find Enrique not guilty, because I mean it was just common sense. It was just common sense, and it didn't happen that way. We were extremely surprised. And then to top it off, the judge slaps them with terrorist enhancement, just to make it very difficult for the 1512 obstruction charge to come off at any point. For you to slap 5 guys with terrorist enhancement, 5 American young men. I mean, how much cruelty. This was good versus evil the whole time.
I'll ask it's a loaded question. What does it feel like when you hear those words? I mean, this is like, what is that moment like?
That moment was difficult, but our faith carries us, and we know that God has put us in this path for a reason. We're still uncertain of the reason exactly, but I think we're learning it. And it was a difficult moment. Sentencing was very difficult for me as a mom, to sit there with a courtroom full of people waiting to see your son crucified. So it was a very difficult moment, but we're strong. And I think we fall and we get up together as a family, and we get up stronger than ever. So right now we keep our heads up high, and we believe in God. We believe that good things are coming. We thank God for the victory that the American people have decided to bring us with President Donald Trump. And we hope that he makes the right decision and keeps his word with us. And we're faithful that we have a lot of faith that it's going to happen.
After he was convicted, how long was it until sentencing?
June and July. I think it was like 3 months, maybe.
Okay,
I can't remember the numbers.
The judge comes down with 22 years.
From 33.
Okay, I mean, I can't even ask what that feels like. How often do you keep in touch with? How often do you hear from or communicate with Enrique?
We try to communicate daily. We had the past 6 months have been really, I think, have been the hardest for us, because he was moved around a lot in the last 6 months. I don't know. It could have been for 2 different reasons, but he was moved around a lot. So it made it very difficult. The longest that we've been without talking is like 45 days. And most of the time that he's been incarcerated, he's been in solitary confinement a lot.
Can you explain? This is where also I don't care if people think justice has been doled out here. Can you explain the conditions that he's been under? Where is he, in DC now, or is he out of district?
No, he's in federal prison in Pollock, Louisiana. Right now, he's been for the last month, I believe, or so. These guys have gone through sleeping on a mat, to being cold, to having bologna sandwiches for days and days in a row. They've been hungry. And I know that's been the case with all the J6ers. My son has called me and said, and Enrique's not a big eater. He's not a big guy. And he's told me, you know what, I'm hungry today. For a child to tell you that, that they're really cold, for a child to tell you that he's been put a monitor to check, how he's feeling, is absolutely incredible. So they convicted and sentenced all the J6 families.
Why solitary? How often does that happen, and what's the explanation for when it happens?
There is no explanation. When you're transferred from one jail to another, you automatically get put there. I don't know if it's for security reasons,
Or
or
lingering COVID protocol, maybe. I mean, I'm being facetious.
no, it has nothing to do with COVID. I think they just they get put on solitary confinement just to make sure that supposedly that they're going to be okay and they're not going to create problems. All these guys are really calm guys. I don't think I'm sure that a huge percent. I would dare to say more than a 90% or 95% have not had any problems in jail.
We'll get her back in a second. It's a connection issue, and now at least this time I know I didn't push my limits on a question. I'm just reading the chat. Louisiana prisons are really bad. I don't know that there's a good prison. Maybe it's preconceived notions. A Louisiana federal prison sounds, I don't know, particularly bad. Here's Zuny. Why Louisiana? Is there any rhyme or reason? Do they just pick the worst, the most inconvenient spots to pull him as far away from his family as possible?
Well, that's what they've done from the beginning. They've pulled all of them across the country and very far from their families. I mean, actually, this is one of the closest places he's been. He was up in Can you hear me?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, he was in Manchester, Kentucky for a lot of months. It would cost me thousands of dollars to go visit him. So this is actually Louisiana's the closest he's been.
Louisiana, because you are in Florida now.
Yeah, but we have guys that are from Portland, from Seattle, that are in Orlando, Florida. We have guys that are from New York that are down in South Carolina. It's crazy. We have guys that are from the Orlando area that are in Alabama. I mean, why would you do this? Why would the Department of Justice do this? And we know it's the Department of Justice that takes those decisions. So they've been very evil people. And, Viva, we're not going to forget. We're not going to forget those names. We're not going to forget. A J6 defendant will all his life continue to be a J6 defendant because they have destroyed their lives. So they're never going to get over this, no matter how they try to reconstruct their lives. A lot of lives have been destroyed and a lot of moments have been lost, and those are not replaceable.
It's I always say, stolen money you can replace. Stolen time you can never replace.
Correct.
And do you get to see him? How often do you get to see him in person?
Right now, I haven't seen him for 6 months. Before that, I would see him pretty often, but I haven't seen him in 6 months because he's been moved around so much. We haven't been able to stabilize. And now I'm hoping that he's going to be in Louisiana for a short period of time, hopefully.
Okay, now the question is this: how is he doing?
He's a strong man. Despite all of this, he believes in justice. Justice is coming. Either by the hand of justice or by the hand of God, but we will see justice. We have to see justice. This is just very unfair, and we know that something has to give. Okay,
and now it's like, when people don't have a choice and they're put in these positions and they make the best of them and find out that they are in fact strong enough for the moment. It's incomprehensible. Have you, if I may ask, have you been in touch with either anyone from the Trump team to make these grievances known? I mean, I in as much as humanly possible, we have platforms and cover these injustices as we see them. Do you have has there been any meaningful, direct communication?
No, there hasn't been any. And I don't think any of us in the families expected that. I mean, this is, after all, a political situation. This is not a criminal. This is a political situation. So I don't think we expected that from President Trump's team. I think that we have faith in that team, and we have faith in Donald Trump, and we've voted for him 3 times in a row, and we will continue to back him up, and we know that the right decision's coming.
Well, I'm doing this so that everybody can snip and clip it. We've got our Sunday show, and we know that people within the administration watch it. How many of the Proud Boys? There are 5 who were convicted. What were the sentences? It was 22 years, 17 years. They were wild sentences.
Yes, I think the lowest was 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember right now, but I mean, these were hefty sentences. I mean, this is unjust across the board.
Next question I was going to ask was, oh geez, I totally forgot what I was going to ask. So the pardons, the Proud Boys, the sentences. Oh, the appeal status. I'm sorry, I almost forgot that. What is the current appeal status?
We continue with the appeals process. The appeal process is for some time in, I believe, 2026. But that's still moving along.
Holy cow! So now I'm going to our locals community to see if I've missed any questions. Well, I'll see if I can get some questions that I might have missed, but it's incomprehensible. It's Kafkaesque. Do you? I mean, the one question that I asked stupidly when I was, documenting the Ottawa protests, and I'm interviewing people who are protesting the lockdown conditions and tyranny in Canada, and they came from East Bloc, they came from Venezuela, and I said, "Are you going to go? Do you want to leave and go back home?" And it's like, "Well, we can't go back home, and there's nowhere else to go." What do you? I mean, what do you feel like living in a country now that is implementing the same tactics that your parents fled?
Oh, I've thought of that a million times. That feels terrible. It feels terrible, and it feels like a lot of people don't feel it like I feel it, and they don't see it as I see it. So hopefully, we're going to get our country back, and things are going to go good again. But we need to be very careful as Americans that this doesn't happen again. We need to be very careful with the left and make sure that that we see anything that's coming that's close to this. And we have to be careful with our governments and who we choose and who we vote for. We need to be very careful with that. We can't let this happen again. We need to be very vigilant.
And so now on your end, Enrique's there. Appeals process is underway. Is there a next step in the appeals process that's a sort of a date to look forward to above and beyond January 21st?
No, right now there's nothing. The appeal process is, like I said, going on. It'll probably be looked at sometime at the end of the year, beginning of 26. So right now we just pray and hope and concentrate on what's ahead, what's are immediately ahead.
Enrique, does he have kids? No kids?
Yes, he has one child.
It's theft from everyone involved. The theft of a son, the theft of a man, the theft of a father. I don't know if he's married, a partner. We'll come back in a second. Locals, I think, let me see in the chat, get any questions that I might have missed. I think we've gotten this out here. I think everybody, I'll say, anybody who even thinks that Enrique and the others are guilty, anyone who thinks that you hate the Proud Boys, these sentences are not commensurate with justice, period. Enrique's been in jail for 4 years now, Zuny, right?
Yes, it's going to be 4 years.
All right. And now is there anything you would want to say that I didn't ask or you didn't get the opportunity to say?
No, I just want your audience to be vigilant, to be careful with mainstream media, to look into these things, to do what's good for our country and for our people and for our citizens. Please help these guys as much as you can. I mean, any little bit helps. You can go into tarriofamilyfund.org, and this helps.
Say that again. What's it called?
tarriofamilyfund.org.
TarrioFamilyFund.org. Okay, let me just open that up. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, and that every single cent, I'm a hardworking woman, and every single cent goes towards my son's either legal team or helping him, eat, or helping him use the phone. That's
this
correct.
Is the legit. Okay, so this is the legit one. Everybody, you can feel comfortable supporting this one. Okay, good. I'll share that with everybody.
And everything helps. We need to help restore what this government has done to these guys, and they need to have something to come home to, a business, a work, a car, anything. Again, they have lost everything for being patriots.
Someone asked a question in there that I always forget to ask. Mail. Can people, is there an address that they can get to mail Enrique letters or any form of support like that?
Yes. Enrique's inmate number is 98721-004. And if you just type on your browser BOP inmate search, if you put his name, Enrique Tarrio, it will show the jail where he's at.
98721-004?
Yes.
Okay.
And
perfect.
you just have to go to the BOP inmate search and you type his name and it'll give you the address where you can mail anything. And you know what? They appreciate letters a lot. I can't tell you how much they appreciate those letters and know that they have not been forgotten and that there's people out there that care.
Zuny, I'm going to continue live if you don't mind, and I'll text you afterwards to thank you, but I'll thank you. And thank you for staying longer than we initially anticipated.
It's okay. Thank you so much, Viva, for having me on. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your audience, and I appreciate the opportunity to raise awareness. Thank you so much, and we will be in touch.
Okay, absolutely. Godspeed. God bless. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And now Viva is on a watch list. Tongue-in-cheek, people. I was reading the chat. I'm not bringing up any comments that are deliberately intended to upset a guest. You can go look through the evidence of that trial, and I see some comments, saying, "Oh, Enrique they had guns, and he had Proud Boys carved on the magazines." Oh, you mean like Americans? The idea that this was seditious conspiracy that was being organized. First of all, I know a lot about the trial, and it was an absolute setup from the get-go. It was a setup. Incidentally, there were a lot of, let's just say, agents or CHSs involved that were setting this up so they could then afterwards use it to, explain away how this was actually a seditious conspiracy, so-called insurrection. They're organizing a seditious conspiracy, and nobody brings an actual meaningful firearm, weapon. And I'm using the word weapon not to qualify firearms as weapons, but nobody brings pepper spray. That's how you insurrect. That's how you use seditious conspiracy. You imagine the hell that they put families through. I like to say that there could be justice tomorrow, and there will be trauma for the rest of a man's life. What type of stress does this do to shorten a lifespan? To stress out a mother who now is deprived of her son for 4 freaking years. So I look at the chat. Sorry, I didn't mean to actually bring that one up. Let me see what that says. I know. Oh, I'll bring it up. I don't know how you stay sane sometimes the injustice is just too much to deal with. The injustice and the endlessness of the injustice. It's one story after another. It's impossible to keep up with it. And it's impossible to cover all of it. And it's impossible to cover all of it and then keep up with all of it. It's not a question of chasing clicks. It's that, you try to follow up and stay up to date with Caleb Pollock. Try to stay up to date with Dan Hartman. Try to stay up to date with Dexter Taylor. I mean, I spoke with him on Dexter Taylor, the New York guy, sentenced to 10 years in prison, in state prison, for building his own firearm. These Jan 6ers, it's been nothing but torture, deliberate torture. The process is the punishment. And the punishment, whether or not there's a pardon tomorrow, and there should be a pardon the day Trump gets into office. Whether you think they're guilty or not, by the way. And I'll even say, okay, you people out there who believe the mainstream media, you believe Proud Boys are a terrorist group. Terrorist enhancements. So you get out there and you make some noise and you make Trump know, and you make Team Trump know that he's already elected, and maybe there's less pressure tactics that can be implemented because he's already elected. And so what's going to happen if he only pardons the nonviolent? You make sure that he knows. It's all of them. It's all of them, because even the quote guilty ones have had their justice, their constitutional rights violated. Pre-trial detention for Enrique Tarrio? That's absolute nonsense. And I'm trying not to swear because maybe Zuny is still watching and doesn't want to hear me swear. That's absolute horseshit. Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to take the party on over to vivabarneslaw.locals.com for our after party, take some questions. Let me just go into the chat and see. So, by the way, please snip, clip, share it all. We've been across platforms. What's amazing is, let me see here. Got 400 people watching on YouTube. some subject matter is not as widely promoted on YouTube as other subject matter, as you can imagine. They want to treat, it's amazing. They want to treat the Proud Boys like terrorist insurrectionists, and they don't look to find the Jan 6 pipe bomber. That makes sense only because it's so patently transparent what they're trying to do. Where's the link to the website? Here we go. This is a Give Send Go. I'll put them in the pinned comment. Link to the Give Send Go. The inmate number was, let me see if I can remember it offhand. It was 004 at the end. I don't want to say it wrong and then screw up. Let me just go 98721-004. You can go to the Bureau of Prisons website and you enter the number and you can send letters. And I know that they like letters. Tommy Robinson, try to keep up with that injustice. Holy crap. I've been following that since 2018. When I couldn't believe in law, whether or not Tommy Robinson was guilty of contempt of court. You know where you get arrested, charged, tried, convicted, and sentenced to 13 months in jail in 5 hours, in a period of 5 hours? You know where that happens? North Korea. Although I think it took even longer to arrest Otto Warmbier. His trial lasted an hour. Then he was sentenced to 13 years hard labor, brought back a vegetable, and died shortly after getting home. You know where you get arrested, charged, tried, convicted, and sentenced within 5 hours? North frickin' Korea. So congrats, UK. You know where you get pretrial detention with no bail or bond despite not a lick of violence? Joe Biden's America. Thank goodness. How many days left do we have now? 12. 12 days left in Joe Biden's America. Pipe bomber was the feds themselves creating a diversion to explain lack of security at the Capitol. That is Chief Sun's theory. I have no doubt that it's true. You imagine? They know what the guy looks like. I mean, give or take. They know what the guy looks like. They know what shoes he was wearing. Very rarely sold shoes. 25,000 shoes over 3 years. And all that they got is pixelated potato cans that came out of, 1980s Russia. Shay, boss. Okay, let me go to the chat here and say, must be fun for people to blast others with radiation with chronic injuries. Okay, sorry, I don't know what that is. Okay, I'm just reading some of the chat here. So, by the way, let me see something. I'm going on with Richard Surrett at a 518 segment. So what I'm going to do now, I'll do the locals exclusive bit here because I'm not going to... I'm going to read some of the chat over on vivabarneslaw.locals.com. In fact, exclusively for the rest of this stream, the chat on vivabarneslaw.locals.com. A special SOV says, Dementia Joe probably thinks he will be doing another term. LOL. Well, Dementia Joe, look, I placed my bets, and I think, if anyone was listening to Barnes, you could choose to make some money today, but it looks like there is some suspicion on the pardons that's coming into the news because Liz Cheney, Anthony Fauci, and Benny Thompson have had their respective stocks skyrocket for pardons. And then the question is whether or not Sam Bankman-Fried is also going to get a pardon. So Joe Biden, in as much as he's burning shit down on his way out, pardoning child pornography, pardoning murderers and rapists, pardoning, commuting included in there. So don't say Viva's wrong because he said pardoning. They only commuted their death sentences to life in prison. I believe that qualifies as a presidential pardon in a variation of a commutation. Biden's, pardons his son, Chinese spies, child pornography. What else? Murderers and rapists. So the only question is, my running theory is if he pardons Kinzinger, if he pardons Benny Thompson and Liz Cheney, I think he's going to, I said it before, I think he's going to pardon the entire Jan 6 committee. Because you wouldn't pardon Liz Cheney alone. Maybe then you're going to go pardon the chairs, Liz and Benny. But you pardon everybody on that committee because they probably broke the law when they destroyed evidence afterwards. Then the question is, I was just looking it up today, is he going to pardon Sam Bankman-Fried, whose family is exquisitely well connected, has donated tirelessly and loyally to the Democrat Party. And as much as Biden is either selling pardons or they know how to get them, I would, for the odds, 95 to, what is it? No, it's 20 to 1 on Sam Bankman. Neurodivergent says, I have to run to the post office. Hold down the fort on Rumble. LOL. I'm going to keep it open because I don't have much time left anyhow for our locals exclusive afterwards. And I'm going to go on with Richard Surrett. Crooked Judges says Denise and two over at our local. Oh, no, I'm going to get to the tip question. Someone distracted me. Roostang, just so you know, you distracted me. Viva, did you apologize to Rabbi Litvin, Bluegrass Rabbi, after he blocked you? Okay. Roostang, I don't want another tip question. You're joking, right? Because I love I got blocked by a rabbi, and then I tweeted, this is the most anti-Semitic thing I've ever experienced in my life. The rabbi who's shitting on Thomas Massey, because apparently Massey is not tweeting out how to deal with a snowstorm to his constituents. Oh, cripe, what state is he? What state is Thomas Massey? It's a state that's not used to getting snowstorms. Sorry, I don't know this offhand, people. Thomas Massey, Kentucky. So apparently there's a big storm that's hitting Kentucky, and a rabbi, bluegrass rabbi, if he is a real rabbi, is giving Thomas Massey a hard time for not tweeting out how to deal with snow. And I'm like, oh, their goodness. Anyway, then I get blocked, and then I make a joke because I don't mind getting blocked by sensitive snowflakes. Speaking of snowstorms. Entry required says jury instructions. You know what to do. Make it snappy. I like that. Encryptus says, I want to know how she personally deals with detractors. What does she say to those people like who will call him scum because he committed crimes? I don't know who that person is. Is that person in our community or on locals, on Rumble? You can't, if you're in that position and you're sensitive to it, you cannot read the chat or get real insensitive real quick. And this is one of the things, I won't mention names, but I think I've publicly mentioned it anyhow. But there are people they're outright victims of the highest order who get absolutely abused on social media in the most horrendous ways possible. I'll mention one because it's we've had this discussion publicly, but Dan Hartman, who fucking scum of the earth trolls say you should have prevented your kid from getting the jab, or scum of the earth who suggests that Kayla Pollock is not actually a quadriplegic. Scum of the earth, people who are fueled by the negative energy that they generate in others through their toxic evil. And you either get desensitized to it very quickly, or if you cannot, because humans are humans, you cannot engage with it and you cannot listen to it. Its goal is to distract you from your mission. Its goal is to make you suffer. And if you suffer when you read it, don't read it, period. Don't engage with it. Don't respond to it, because the response is what they want, and you are feeding the troll in the truest of senses. So I have no doubt she probably gets a lot of shit, but I think she looks very much that she has the wherewithal to deal with that crap. And at the end of the day, also, it's just words from angry, awful, sad people, and you have to have pity on them in as much as humanly possible. Encryptus says, when a drug dealer with a kilo of coke in his backpack he is wearing next to his gun and money gets searched illegally, the evidence is tossed out and he goes free, even though he's clearly guilty. All of these people who have been absolutely mistreated in a constitutional manner, and all of them have been, and all need to go free, regardless of guilt or of anything. People who are on Truth, snip, clip, and share this on Truth. I should probably I will post the entire interview to Truth Social afterwards. Entry required says 218 Republican members of Congress, Thomas Massey. Yes, you are all wrong. And in the comment section, let me refresh this up here and see what's going on the Hyphen says, Viva, I have a serious question for Canadians. Rather be a republic or the 51st state, or ruled by a king? What do you think? The question cannot be asked for all of Canada, Hyphen. There's too much cultural, ideological, political, historical identity, diversity in Canada. So you can't ask the Maritimes if they would want to be part of the same country as Ontario. Let me rephrase. You can't ask the Maritimes if they want to join a foreign country. But you know what I mean. Damn it. What am I trying to say? Yeah. Okay. So I think a lot of Canada would love to be absorbed by the states, particularly Alberta, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. It doesn't necessarily go in that order. I don't think Ontario would love to be incorporated into the U.S. I don't think British Columbia would like to be incorporated into the U.S. I sure as hell know that, and I'm not saying this in any negative way, the separatist province of Quebec, whose federal party is based on the idea of separating from the Federation, wants to go join America. So I don't think you can ask that. It's like there's not sufficient uniformity, ideological uniformity across Canada to expect one coherent answer from an entire country. Viva Frei from Meganthet, making the assumption that most of humanity isn't vile and evil. You could be selfish and petty, but vile and evil to say most of humanity is a bit pessimistic. Stephen Britton says, Canada will never get rid of the monarchy. There's nothing to gain from dumping the monarchy, as politicians will still be politicians. It would be a bunch of paperwork and expense for no result. Yeah, Annex Alberta, says Britain. Why not a republic? But then the republic would have to be broken down into how many states and how many provinces? Cripe, I always forget this. Newfoundland, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Quebec, Ontario, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Alberta, British Columbia, Northwest Territories. We're up to 10. Yukon, 11. There's territories in how many provinces and territories? I always get mixed up. Let's see here. In Canada, okay, 10 and 3. Okay, good. So 10 provinces, 3 territories. So you're going to have a republic and add 13 different states to that republic? Good luck with that. Biltong is in the house. Booyah over on Rumble. Start your New Year's health journey with some tasty high-protein meat snacks. Biltong is packed with B12, iron, zinc, creatine, and more. Get some at biltongusa.com. I was just eating before the stream and I had to floss afterwards to make sure I had no peppercorns in my mouth. It was not the Ghost Wagyu. It was the Reaper, the Angus Reaper. And it was freaking delicious and freaking spicy. Thank you, Biltong. So there's that. Okay. So 13 states or less. Yeah. None of it Northwest Territories and the Yukon Territory. Those are the 3 I forget. Viva, please check with Ezra Levant. Is the Coots group back in court this week? That's from Roostang. I absolutely will. There's another one that's tough to keep up with. And I've had disagreements with people about that particular case. I don't even care if they were guilty. What they've gone through is inhumane. I happen to believe that they're not guilty of the charges that they faced. All right, that's it. 5:02. Okay, we can go for 3 more minutes here. Let me see what's going on in Broken Prophet says 10 provinces, 2 territories. Very few understand Trump's sense of humor, says Rockstar over on CommyTube. Yeah, it's a sense of humor, and it's a negotiation tactic. You say something that's borderline absurd, because I consider it to be absurd, but to highlight the fact that Canada is benefiting unduly from its relationship with America. Sure, it's a reciprocal relationship to some extent, but Canada is also creating a national security risk for America through its lax, borderline, non-existent immigration policy. And there's nothing wrong with reminding little brother that you're the big brother. And it's like, it's what it is. You can get angry at it. You can say, that's very insulting to Canadian. Too bad. Sissy, grow up. Canada is the population of California. I don't think it has the GDP of California. Hold on, let me see here. Which is bigger? Which is bigger, the GDP of California or Canada? I think it's California by a long shot. Let me see here. The GDP of California is bigger than Canada, according to recent data. Yeah, okay, so it's 50% bigger. The GDP of California is roughly 3.9 trillion. It's double. And Canada's 2.14 trillion. So you are the little brother. Canada, we are the little brother to America. You don't get to pick on your big brother. Your brother offers you protection, but you better recognize that. And you can't sit there and say, we're equal. You're not equal. I mean, you're beautiful, independent nations with your history, your people, your culture. But financially, and when it comes to things like national security, you're not equal. And you have to appreciate that. And what Trump is doing right now is constantly reminding Canada that they are not equal at the negotiating table. And so in as much as it might be insulting and demeaning and degrading, learn how to negotiate from a position of weakness and don't pretend to be the big boy when you're not. And you can get your ass kicked by your big brother every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Okay. That's all I have to say about that. Let me got here. Amy Charles says, hey, don't call our snowbirds friends, immigrants. We are America's hat, says Stephen Britton, and you had better grow up, says Boopsy. Trump is saying, hey, Canada, straighten up and prove yourself. Stop being pitiful. We can't carry you like a baby anymore, says Boopsy. I agree. Also, quit letting in terrorists to our country. Please, with the cherry on top. Otherwise, we're going to slap a tariff on everything coming out of your country. Okay, so with that said, everybody, thank you all for being here. Snip, clip, share away. Get the message out there. It's pardon them all. Pardon them all. And if you're in the, what's radio station? What is the name of Richard Surrett radio station? It's Saga 960 or Saga 690. I always get mistaken. And now I'm going to, all right, Richard Surrett, it's Saga 960. Okay, so News Talk, Saga 960. I will be on at 5:18. So I got to go get the mic ready. I got to go pee-pee. And that is Dr. Pierre Polière. I have to go urinate dans la toilette. And then I'm going to get ready for the next segment, which is going to be talking about Canada yet again. Unusual Suspects. Hold on. Actually, I'm going to give you that link before we go. The Unusual Suspects. Unusual Suspects. Watch it tonight. 'Tis a great show, and I'm on it. And I don't think they have the link set up yet, so I'll just give everybody the channel and go watch 6 o'clock is The Unusual Suspects. Thank you for being here. And tomorrow I will be live at noon, and we'll talk about all the other news. I wanted to talk about there's news in Trump's New York case. There's the news in the Jack Smith filing. Merrick Garland not yet done being the biggest piece of shit on the planet, tied right up there with Mayorkas. Trying to release a portion of Jack Smith's report, whatever the hell, filing. Criminals, and they will be criminals until the day they leave office, and they better get their freaking pardons from sleepy, demented Joe, because as far as I'm concerned, they all belong in jail. The only question, does Biden pardon Sam Bankman-Fried? 20-1 odds, people. Let's see what happens. All right, thank you all for being here. As always, make sure that you're subscribed, notifications turned on, yada, yada, yada. And I will see you tomorrow, peeps. Peace out.